A ridiculous story came out this morning that Ashton Kutcher is afraid that Diddy is going to make up false stories about him so he can get off on the charges. And this is absolutely ridiculous. And if you're a fan of Ashton Kutcher, you might want to turn off the video because I'm about to slam him. This is one of the most ridiculous things I've seen and that we've seen so far in the whole Diddy saga. And it's going to get, I can tell you right now, with everything that's trickling out about it, it's about to get really, really wild. The story's talking about that he's worried that Diddy is going to start making up stories about him so that Diddy gets off on the charges, which is ridiculous. But I'll tell you one of the big things is, somebody pointed out that the story's not actually from him. It's someone writing about him, that he's not quoted in the story. But here's the biggest thing. These people have PR teams. And you take someone like Ashton Kutcher, you think, well, he's not that big of a star. He's a big star, and he's made a lot of money, and he has a PR team that works for him. And if you wonder why that Diddy has had such a, I don't want to say clean image, but he's had he's had a good public image for the last 20-some years, despite him being in a nightclub shooting, despite him being tied to murders, despite him being tied to assault allegations. This stuff's not all new. This stuff's been going on, but he's had a pretty good reputation because he's got such a powerful PR team. So my point is this: when you see these stories like Ashton Kutcher right now, today that came out, do not doubt that this story was planted by his PR team. And it's so ridiculous because that's the defense, is that he's worried that Puff's going to start making up stories about him. Now, mind you this too. Let's assume that Diddy under questioning brings Ashton Kutcher up. Do you think the feds are just going to be okay with some hearsay story about him? That Diddy's just going to say, hey, you know what, he's involved in this, and then they're going to go tackle him and bring him down? Of course not. There's going to be major proof needed, and chances are that proof exists because we know that Diddy has videos of just about everything and things that happen at these parties and things that went on behind the scenes. Something else I heard, which is really interesting, is that there were multiple cameras covering multiple angles, and some of them were not very visible. Some of them were visible, but there were others that were not visible, where if you did not know where they were, you may not have known they were there. So there's a lot of people probably that have been taped that didn't even know it. And here's the thing too, you have probably a lot of people shaking in their boots right now, a lot of Hollywood executives, Hollywood superstars, entertainment stars, rap stars, music stars. People are worried because things they may have done at these parties or when at Diddy's places, and now they're thinking, oh shoot, am I on tape? And chances are they probably are. So that's what's so ridiculous about the story to begin with, is that if he's on tape, he's on tape. But the most ridiculous thing is the feds are not going to just kick in Ashton Kutcher's door because some rumor. They will need solid proof to go after him. And chances are, if he was involved in Diddy and if he was involved in something shady, they probably have video. Puff probably has video of it, and in turn, the feds probably have that video. And the thing about Ashton Kutcher is this: he's such a slime ball, and I've never really been a fan of his. I always thought, he goes all the way back to, I think it was around 98, 99, where he kind of got popular. It's kind of when he was kind of at the mainstream scene. And I was never really a fan of his because, I've seen his movies, I watch his stuff. He's done a lot of stuff over the years. But he always struck me as an arrogant, self-righteous person, like one of those people who acts like, because the worst part is the people who act like they've never done anything wrong and then they want to lecture to everyone else. And those are the people that usually are the worst people, because we all have flaws, we all have mistakes. There's times where Maybe you might be a good person, but there's days where I think I'm a good person, but there's days I have a bad day, and I might be rude to somebody. I might be rude to someone on the phone or at the store, and you don't mean to be, but you just have a bad day. And that's normal. Everybody does. So the people who act like they never have a bad day and they're so perfect, baloney. So this is the thing. Look at Ashton Kutcher. He was tied very closely to Danny Masterson. This is another thing. I just thought of this. I saw something recently that he was afraid that he was going to get taken down with Masterson, and that's a whole nother ball of wax, because it's like, well, what is that about? Because don't forget, these two guys worked together and they were close friends. So you could only imagine. Now the difference, probably what saved him in that case, if he was involved, because those are allegations, obviously. If he was involved, there's probably no video, no proof. So because Ashton Kutcher wasn't accused of anything, maybe there was no proof and there was no way to tie him to something. So that's probably how he got off. And then don't forget, he was one of the people who wrote a glowing letter to the judge to get Masterson's sentence reduced or to get it lighter. And it's like, it's just ridiculous, because by all accounts, Masterson was never a good guy. Like even in past interviews, he was. And I got to tell you, I never knew of him till the stuff came up with his trial. And then you start looking at old interviews and you realize the guy came off like a monster. Like he's just a real son of a gun. And I never watched the 70s show, so I didn't know who he was. But with Ashton Kutcher, he's always preaching he's always preaching and acting like he's doing the right thing, because even like he had a charity where he was helping trafficking victims. And I just saw recently that I might be I shouldn't even say this because I don't know, but I thought they shut that charity down. But I'll have to. But I'm not 100% sure. But what's crazy about that is that here's a guy who's tied to Danny Masterson, who's a predator. Then he has a charity that's helping trafficking victims. Then he's a close friend of Diddy, who's being accused of trafficking. And this is the thing. A lot of times when these people are accused of this stuff, especially the celebrities, especially people with a lot of money, I tend to be a little bit skeptical at first. Now, I'm not saying that they're innocent, but I tend to be skeptical because I know people also have, there's also reason to go after these people. And like with the stuff with Diddy, I knew he was a bad guy, but then as more and more is coming out, you don't realize how bad of a guy he really is. And that kind of struck me. But my point is Ashton Kutcher being such a close friend with Masterson, then he's such a close friend with Diddy, and then he's acting so righteous like I know what I was saying is that Diddy looks like he might be a bigger trafficker than we've seen in a long time. So the fact that if Ashton Kutcher was really helping all these victims, how do you not see that with Diddy? How do you not see that? I mean, that's so crazy. Like, the thing that I'm not buying is, I didn't know. I never saw anything. Okay, this is the thing. Of course, we all have friends, and you don't know everything your friends are up to. Okay, that's a given. However, if your friend is throwing big parties, is involved with a lot of people, and you're there with them, and you're hanging out with them, and you're at these things, you get a pretty better sense of what people are really about when you see them in those environments. We've all been there. We've seen people who we thought are like straight-laced, and they get some alcohol on them, and they're a different person. And then you're like, okay. So we've seen it. So you would think he got a good sense of who Diddy was. So if he's really helping out trafficking, people who are victims of trafficking, you're telling me he never saw that? I'm just not buying it. And Ashton Kutcher, he's always come off as slimy to me, but even more in the last couple years, he's just looking worse and worse and worse. And then with this article coming out today that says he's worried that that Diddy's gonna try to make up stories about him, it's like, It's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And the worst part, probably the worst part of it, is that there's people who are fans of Ashton Kutcher that are buying this stuff. And I just don't know how you could buy that. Like, for example, I mean, I've told you, I've always been a huge fan of Diddy. I've been a huge fan of him for, 25, 30 years, and I follow him closely. And I've always known, he's always been a bad guy because he's always had drama around. He's one of those people who there's always drama surrounding that guy, constantly, right? But now it's like disappointing. I'm not going to come up here and start defending him because I was a fan of him. It's like for people to do that with Ashton Kutcher, and it's like, they're going to be defending him. They're going to be sticking up for him and saying, "Oh, he's not how do you do that?" And I'm not saying, "Oh, yeah, he's not convicted of anything." And of course, these are like allegations and circumstances, and you got to let it play out. But I think by him doing that to me, that speaks pretty loud.